So we're getting ready to dye our alpaca, but first we need to make some dye solution. So I've got all my tools set up here and I'm wearing my gloves to protect my hands. Dye has a tendency to get on everything and will dye your skin. Believe it or not, you are made out of protein, just like your wool is. So we need a few tools. I've got my scale right here that weighs in grams. You can measure out using measuring spoons, but I prefer to be more accurate and to use weight. You need a jar for your dye solution. Anything that you use for your dyeing and your dye solution needs to be dedicated for dyeing. You cannot reuse this as a food jar. It is now permanently a dye jar, and I suggest that you mark it appropriately. I'll put a label on here, and on my lid I'll be sure to write on there dye so that I know not to use this for food ever again. I've also got a stirring stick. I've got a knife here that is a permanent dye knife, and these are my dye measuring spoons. I've also got a syringe that I'm going to use for the actual dyeing, but I'm probably not going to use for making my solution. Today we're going to be making a 1% dye solution of Greener Shades Midnight Black. I'm going to make a pretty large batch of dye solution so that I don't have to remix it. The dyes are most dangerous and most volatile when they're in their powder forms because you can inhale the tiny particles. They're much safer when they're in a liquid. So I like to make a fairly large amount of dye stock to begin with, and then I don't have to put the powders in every time that I dye. So to make a 1% solution, we are going to do, for every 1 gram of powder, we need 100 milliliters of liquid, of water. I'm going to do 500 milliliters of water and 5 grams of powder. So I'll get my scale ready here. And this was the little sample package of Greener Shades dyes. I really like them, but there wasn't much in the sample. I hadn't even opened this yet, and you could see that it looks like it's almost gone. So we're going to pour 5 grams out. And we're going to put that in our jar. Now I'm going to add my water, and I do the dye first and then the water second because I think it mixes a little bit better that way. So that was 250 milliliters and then another 250 milliliters. And now we'll just stir this up, put our lid on it, label it, and we have dye stock all ready.